Hey guys and gals, welcome. This is your host Raven2012, welcoming you to Kerbal Space Program 1.0.2. Now, what is Kerbal Space Program? Well, the basics of Kerbal Space Program, if we go back to the origins, is basically build a rocket from limited parts and see how far it can go. And that's the basics of the game. Um, You could get complex in it, but the basics of the game in this is to build a rocket and see how far it can go. That's basically how the game started. Uh, Felipe, or Harvester as he's known in the Kerbal Space Program world, is the creator of this. And he had the idea years ago when he was a kid. Him and his buddies used to make little rockets out of whatever he can find and basically build them and launch them and see how far they can go. And eventually he put these little guys on them, little pilots, to see, just add little personality to them. And basically he called them Kerbals, the little test astronauts that usually most of the time with the rockets would crash. But that's basically how the Kerbal Space Program started. And then years later, when he was working in an advertising company, him and his buddy got an idea to make a game. And basically, what the game was back then was to build rockets out of parts and see how far you can go. And it was very challenging. And then about a year and a half later, they added in science mode to make it a little bit harder, because throughout the whole alpha we didn't have science and career mode. The beginning we started out with a few parts, and let me jump in here in the sandbox here. I want to show you guys something. And we just basically built really massive rockets to see how far we could go, and finally we started getting to orbit. We started going further and further. We started pushing the engine itself, the game, and then he wanted to come back at us and see if we can go further out. So he added in the moon, and then we started building bigger and bigger rockets to get to the moon, and we finally did that. And then later on, I guess they started adding in more parts, and it just got really easy to get out there. Because before, like I said, we had about 4 or 5 parts, and then enter science mode about a year and a half ago, which, like I said, kind of brought that challenge back, because basically you're still limited to parts, but you have to unlock them through the career or the science tech tree. So, and then eventually career mode came, which added more challenge and more limitations to your rockets, which really brought back that old feel. If since a lot of some of us players been playing since early beginnings, it brought back that feeling of a challenge, because from the career mode to the beginning was a challenge, but in between, when they started adding all those parts before science mode, it was just really easy in sandbox to get where you want to go. And I'll show you what some of the craft actually looked like back then. Let's see here. I'll show you my moon rocket if I can find it. That's the orbiter. Here we go, moon rocket. And then, so this is basic. See the parts right here? This is all we have in the beginning to make rockets. And back then, nothing stopped us from actually getting to where we gotta go. I mean, if there was a moon there, it was a challenge to build something like this and get to the moon and either orbit it or possibly land and take off and come back. And this is basically what this was back then. So That's basically what the game is. It's still kind of like that. It's you're basically building a rocket, see how far out you can go, um, with the challenges of limited parts. And I think the career mode and the science mode was bringing that back to the players who've been around a lot. Because, like I said, later updates they added a lot more parts, and it wasn't challenging. It was getting easier and easier to get out there. And then they started adding in other planets and seeing how far you can get now with the parts. And then we just basically made it too easy. And I think the developers wanted us to have that challenge back, which is awesome because when science and career mode came in, it really brought back that challenge because I honestly was getting tired of the game. It wasn't getting challenging. I was missing the old game like this. Let's see what else we got. I'll show you all my rockets here. These are basically some orbiter stuff. Yeah, it's my orbiters, my orbiter with boosters. Some of these actually can orbit the moon. The only one that could actually land on the moon was this guy here. This thing was massive. And nowadays, with the new parts, you don't even have to build anything as quite as enormous to get to the moon and back. So I miss those old days. So that's basically what the game is all about, you know. I mean, now they have career mode and, like I said, science. That is fairly new to me, the career mode, because that was added in last summer, the end of last summer. And then before that, the winter before that is when they added in science mode, and then beta just came out last Christmas, this following Christmas. So career is still fairly new to me, and they've changed a lot in 1.0 with career and stuff like that. So I could say the game's about the career mode and going through it, and the game's about going through the science mode, or just messing around in the sandbox. But basically, the core of it is just building a rocket and seeing how far you can go, and that's the basics. And the only way I can actually show you any of the career mode is actually just follow my LP, because that's the basics. Because I can't just go in there and show you guys, oh, this and that, because there's a lot of it in the beginning that's locked that you can't see until the end. And science mode is basically a sandbox mode that has the tech tree you gotta unlock, which adds limitations to how many different crafts you can build in the beginning. So, and sandbox mode is basically the old school mode that we had from the get-go. Build a rocket, see how far you can go. So alright guys, I think that's basically covers what it is. I mean, all the other stuff in here, like training and whatnot, this is still new. You guys can go in there and check it out. Let's go in sandbox mode if you want to mess around with some of the parts. I honestly, I don't want to go over each and one of those parts because it would just take forever to go over them. So basically, it's just go in there and mess around with them, see what you can do, and see how far you can get. Because basically, that's what we used to do in the good old days, was just mess around with the parts and see how far you can get, and experimentation. That's all that the game is just experimentation. So alright guys, I think that is it for what is Kerbal Space Program for some of you guys that don't know quite what it is. Hopefully I explained some of it for you, and if not, there's more in-depth stuff you can see with my Let's Plays, so definitely stick in for that stuff and I'll watch that. So alright guys, we'll see you next time, and thanks for joining me. Bye bye.